Welcome to BBC News, broadcasting to viewers in the UK and around the world. We start the programme for you in the Middle East, where the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been holding discussions to try to resolve the escalating crisis there. He's told Israel it will endanger its long-term security if it abandons efforts to resolve the conflict with the Palestinians. Now, Mr. Blinken, who was speaking after talks with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said his immediate priority was to restore calm. The visit comes in the midst of a spate of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. The BBC's Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman has more.
In Jerusalem, the wreckage is spreading, and another generation grows up in its wake. Israel's new far-right police minister is vowing to step up home demolitions of Palestinian attackers and their families. Ratib's home in occupied East Jerusalem was bulldozed yesterday, but it was his brother that did the crime, an Islamic Jihad militant jailed 16 years ago for murder.
This has been the worst period of violence in years, and now you have some of the most radical voices in Israeli politics in the government calling for more of this for the families of attackers, evictions, expulsions and home demolitions.
The UN calls it collective punishment, banned under international law. The Israeli government says it deters further attacks. The US's top diplomat landed at what he called a pivotal moment. Mr. Blinken called to preserve the international formula for peace, the so-called two-state solution, but that is a distant and fading ambition. He meets Mr. Netanyahu amid one of the worst periods of violence in years.
That's why we're urging all sides now to take urgent steps to restore calm, to de-escalate. We want to make sure that there's an environment in which we can, I hope, at some point create the conditions where we can start to restore a sense of security for Israelis and Palestinians alike, which of course is sorely lacking.
There was also what sounded like a warning from Mr. Blinken for the Israeli government to stick to democratic values amid its plans to boost politicians' power over the courts. Proposals which have sparked mass protests against Mr. Netanyahu's coalition.
We share common interests which are growing by the day. We share common values, two strong democracies which will remain, I assure you, two strong democracies.
Meanwhile, there were more funerals on Monday. A Palestinian man was shot dead by Israeli forces, one of more than 30 this month alone in the occupied West Bank. The army said he drove into a soldier when ordered to stop. While Israelis mourned another of those killed in Friday's attack by a Palestinian gunman outside a synagogue in a Jewish settlement. The international calls for calm are growing, but so too are fears of an inevitable slide into far greater violence. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, our Middle East correspondent Anna Foster is in Jerusalem for us, where she's been following developments as well on this story. And she told us that there's a crucial difference between what the US and Israeli governments mean when they talk of a solution.
Antony Blinken very clearly talked about, as you heard there, the two-state solution. He talked about equality, equal values, equal support for Israelis and Palestinians. But in fact, when Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking, he talked about a workable solution, was the expression he used, with our Palestinian neighbours. But when he says that, he does not mean a two-state solution, because, as you rightly say, his new right-wing, ultra-nationalist coalition partners, the people who enabled him to become Prime Minister once again after a period out of power, they do not want to see a two-state solution. That is not their future vision for Israel. So you really saw on that point quite a divergence. Obviously, Antony Blinken was very keen to set out the US position, and in the same way Benjamin Netanyahu was equally keen, I think, there to not be seen to be embracing it in the same way.
Anna Foster reporting on that story for us. Well, I want to turn to Pakistan for you.